How should the next debate be handled? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Well, happy Wednesday. Donald Trump goes full authoritarian dictator. Typically, the first hour of our program, Congressman Mark Pocan is here with us to take your calls for the hour. We're moving that to the second hour today because I think both of us just wanted to give you and me and all of us basically a chance to process what happened last night. This was a serious and consequential assault on democracy, on the idea of democracy, on the idea of any kind of civilized discourse in a society. It was absolutely astonishing. So anyhow, our Middays with Mark segment, if you have a question specifically for Congressman Mark Pocan, hold it until our second hour, and he will be here for the entire second hour taking your calls. And in our third hour, we're going to be talking about zoonotic diseases, as is COVID. It's a disease that came from animals, and how the next pandemic might come about, God forbid. But to last night, I mean, a couple of questions or a couple of thoughts. Number one, given that Donald Trump is not respecting, he doesn't respect rules, right? He is, in fact, I think that this is probably the story of his entire life. He hired people to take his tests for him in school, according to his niece's autobiography. He lies to banks and inflates the value of his assets. He lies to the IRS and decreases the value of his assets. Or if he's telling the IRS the truth, he's $400 million in debt, way in over his head, and desperately in crisis. So, if he lies about all these, and he obviously has lied to his wives, about what he's up to and who he is and all this. So, although Melania said, I knew who he was when I married him. In other words, it's a transaction, right? So here we've got a guy who absolutely is out for himself and nothing else, period, full stop, who also knows that if he loses this election, or if he can't figure out a way to stop from losing this election, if he can't figure out a way to hang on to power, in all probability, 6 months or a year from now, he's going to be looking at prison. And his kids, too. They're all in on the con. And in fact, it probably goes way beyond that. You've got what do you call it? An oversight group, a watchdog group, yesterday charged that the Trump campaign has laundered over $140 million in campaign contributions. They're basically just moving it into corporations, calling it consulting fees and things like that, and sticking it in their pockets. Which makes perfect sense when you discover how broke he is. But it raises the question, if this is the kind of person who is going to be in a debate, somebody who has no respect for basically anything, and certainly no self-respect, then how do you do the debate? We've got 2 more debates that are scheduled. Should they only turn on the mic when the person is called on? And then only open both mics when it's time for people to have a dialogue? The upside of that is we could actually have a debate and hear about issues. But Trump is going to do everything he can to avoid that because he's got no issues. I mean, the only issues that were discussed plus, by the way, if they did that, everybody would say, oh, well, the debate moderators are making it easier for Biden. But the only issues that were discussed last night, Joe Biden tried to bring up the fact that Donald Trump is trying to take away health care from 30 million Americans and wipe out protections on pre-existing conditions. And Trump simply lied. He said, no, I've got a great health care plan. 3.5 years in, 4.5 years since he announced his candidacy and said he had a great health care plan. We still haven't seen it. Why? Because it doesn't exist, as Biden pointed out. So Trump is, he's great at destroying things. He has destroyed multiple businesses in his life. He has destroyed the lives of lots and lots of people. He's a destroyer. But he's not a builder. He doesn't know how to create things that have lasting value. And the few things that he has created property-wise are all losing a fortune and have been apparently for decades. Thus 6 bankruptcies. So anyhow, the only issues that were discussed last night, number one, the Affordable Care Act, he lied. Number two, the economy, and the impact of the coronavirus. And again, Trump lied about that and tried to make it himself the victim. No words of, oh my God, isn't it sad that, 207,000 Americans are dead and 1 million Americans are infected with a virus that is going to, that could devastate them. Excuse me, 7 million. So, and taxes. I mean, Joe Biden brought up Trump's tax cut, and Trump was like, "Oh, that was a wonderful thing." It's like, so how do you handle a debate where one of the parties in the debate has absolutely no interest in discussing the issues, and when the issues do come up, will lie through his teeth about them, and therefore everything he was doing was throwing chum in the water, throwing blood in the water, throwing dust into the face of his opponent. Everything he was doing last night was an attempt to divert, deflect, distract. That was it. And the polls are in. There was an overnight opinion poll. They found, as I recall, 54% of Americans thought Joe Biden won the election. This was a report on CNN just a few minutes ago. 54% of Americans thought Joe Biden won. 34% of Americans thought Donald Trump won. But I can tell you, the Daily Stormer, the official Nazi website, their headline today is "Trump is the greatest person on earth." Their article starts out, "The takeaway from the debate is this: Donald Trump is the greatest person on earth. He shouldn't be president. He should be king. If he were king, he wouldn't have to deal with all of the scum in Congress, the scum that runs his government, and he could deal directly with the needs of the people." That's what the Nazis had to say this morning. Over on Fox News, this is what David Bossie wrote, quote, "To any reasonable person watching, it was clear that President Trump came prepared and resoundingly defeated former Vice President Joe Biden at Tuesday night's first presidential debate in Cleveland." Meanwhile, the Trump family came in wearing masks, and that was shown on TV, and then they sat down and took off their masks. They were the only ones there. There were apparently a few other people on Trump's side of the audience who didn't wear masks, but by and large, it was the Trump family, the Trump children. Melania wore her mask throughout the whole thing, but everybody else took them off. And one of the doctors, I mean, they had hired this hospital to provide, it was Cleveland Clinic, co-sponsored this thing, and they were providing, advice on what to do and how to do it. And, President Donald Trump's family ignored coronavirus guidelines. They sat in the row without masks. And then one of the doctors came over during the debate, or just as it was about to start, and asked them to put on their masks. Said, "These are the rules. You must put on the mask." And they basically said, "Screw you. Who do you think you are? We're God's gift to the world, don't you know? We're the Trump family. We don't live by rules. Rules are for the little people. Little people pay taxes. Little people follow rules. We're Trumps. Screw your rules." That was essentially their message. Some of the best one-liners from Joe Biden. "You're the worst president that America has ever had. The fact is, everything he's saying is simply a lie. Everyone knows he's a liar. It's hard to get a word in with this clown, this person. Trump wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn. And he's Putin's puppy. And this isn't about his family or my family, it's about your family." That was a pretty brilliant line. But how do you make this happen?